Hello and welcome to Thrive. I'm Susana Kennedy, and as most of you know, Thrive is a platform where we connect with some of the best thought leaders, teachers, and coaches from around the world. Robin is a mind power expert and an international speaker. He travels the world teaching mind power. We are living in such a tumultuous time, a time where we say, this is the new earth, this is a new space, a new place of being, both consciously and physically. And they are very much interlinked and very much affecting each other.
I think we're going to go through a lot of intensity and we need to be prepared for the intensity. And so for me, what I like to do is I want to go within and find out what's my truth. How do I heal the wounds? Because it's so easy to get into the reaction of like, this is wrong and this is right and this is what should be happening. And, and everyone comes in with their opinion, which is, valid. But for me, there's one of my favorite quotes is there's my side, there's your side, and then there's the truth. And how do I go beyond just what I think and what you think? And how do we find the truth? From which place am I going to come from when I make that change? What is the highest vision that I have for the shift that I want to see happen? How do I be the master of my mind? How do I come from a place of healing and love, but also at the same time, not disregard what is going on, not to belittle what is going on for people.
There's a lot of purging coming up. And when I say purging, I mean that old wounds are coming up for healing. And so we are all going through a challenging time with regards to those woundings that are coming up. And the invitation is always to meet that wound, to meet that challenge with love, with kindness, with compassion and respect, and allow yourself to feel it, to really look at it, and then work your way through it, because that is the only way we will truly heal. We are moving into this new space, into this new earth. We are wanting to create a vision for a new earth. What does that look like? But what are we dealing with now? Hello and welcome to Thrive. I'm Susana Kennedy, and as most of you know, Thrive is a platform where we connect with some of the best thought leaders, teachers, and coaches from around the world, and we share knowledge that empowers you. We share conversations that give you insights and pearls of wisdom and actionable tips and tricks that you can actively use in your lives right now. I am waiting for the wonderful Robin Banks to join us online. Robin is a mind power expert and an international speaker. He travels the world teaching mind power all over the world, and he is one of my best friends. And one of the conversations that came up was the fact that we are living in such a tumultuous time, a time where we say, this is the new earth, this is a new space, a new place of being, both consciously and physically. And they are very much interlinked and very much affecting each other. And a lot of people are feeling frustrated about their circumstances. They're frustrated about lockdown. They're frustrated about what has come about because of COVID. And I see that Robin is joining us now. And there's been some other unrest that has also been surfacing. And I just want to remind everyone, we are going to have a very honest discussion today, because I think both Robin and I have very valid points of what we want to discuss today. But there's a lot of purging coming up. And when I say purging, I mean that old wounds are coming up for healing. And so we are all going through a challenging time with regards to those woundings that are coming up. And the invitation is always to meet that wound, to meet that challenge with love, with kindness, with compassion and respect, and allow yourself to feel it, to really look at it, and then work your way through it, because that is the only way we will truly heal. Now, I know a lot of you are tuning in from all over the world, so please do let me know which countries you are tuning in from, because I love knowing where our global community is tuning in from. And I am checking your comments on both Instagram and Facebook, and I am on Zoom with Robin. So please excuse me if sometimes my eye line shifts a little bit. But I'm now going to welcome my lovely friend, international speaker and mind power expert, Robin Banks. How are you doing today, Robs?
I'm very well. Bit of a troubled heart, but generally speaking, quite well. It's a beautiful day in Joburg. I love just showing how gorgeous we are in winter. This is winter in Johannesburg, guys. We are very blessed to have a very mild winter. And I'm sitting in a t-shirt, and it's literally winter. So I feel very blessed and grateful to be living in a gorgeous city. And in this interesting time, we are in very, very interesting times. But I'm very, very well and looking forward to this conversation with you.
I am very jealous, actually. As you know, Robs, I live in Cape Town. And for those of you listening who don't know, I live in Cape Town. And for me, Cape Town is the most beautiful city in the world. But I'm from Johannesburg originally. And one of the things I do miss, and I'm very honest about this, is I miss the winters, because winter in Johannesburg for me is the shortest winter, and it's beautiful blue skies during the day. And so you do actually have that opportunity. I mean, look at that. That is ridiculous. You do have the opportunity to actually feel comfortable in a t-shirt or a cardigan during the day. And then at night, it does get freezing cold. But it's such a short period of time in the greatest scheme of things. I think if you could join Johannesburg's weather with Cape Town's beauty and scenery and ocean and mountain, that would truly be heaven.
No question which is the more beautiful of the two cities. Absolutely no question.
But there is a wonderful energy that I always, a lot of Cape Townians will say, oh, Johannesburg, this and that, and Josie people. But there's a wonderful energy in Johannesburg. There's this energy of like, we can get things done like this, like this, like this, which is so great. And that's why this divine power lives in Johannesburg.
Keep the country going.
It's true, Banksy. It's true. So I see there are people tuned in from England and from Johannesburg and Durban. So hello, everybody. Do give me a wave and do let me know whether you're listening to this live or whether you're listening to a recording of this. Remember, we live in an energetic world, a world of energy. And so this information is coming to you at the exact right time. And I always go back on my comments. So just give me a little thumbs up, and I'm coming in from whatever country you're coming in from. And also tag friends that you feel would benefit from joining in this conversation, or just listening to the conversation as well. Oh, PE as well. We've got somebody tuning in from PE as well. Welcome, Nikki. And Leon, thank you very much. Yoo-hoo, Robin. And Leon is saying, I look lovely today. Thank you, Leon. So, Robs, let's chat about this, because we are moving into this new space, into this new earth. And you did a video yesterday, which I tried to get to share with you guys. I will see if I can still get it and share it with you guys from Robin. But otherwise, I might just put the link to Robin's page to the actual video on our video and just share it with you, because I think it was a very needed video. I've been in a lot of turmoil, I must be honest, over the last couple of days with everything that's happened in America. And I am feeling, and I've shared this with some of my friends of color, that I'm feeling stuck. Like I don't know what the right thing to do is and what the wrong thing to do is, but I am present and I hear and I feel and I don't know what the right thing is. So I apologize in advance, guys. I am trying to find my way through this. I would love the solution to this problem, but I don't have the answer at the moment. And I'm so open to suggestions, from you guys. So be a part of this conversation. We are wanting to create a vision for a new earth. What does that look like? But what are we dealing with now? And I was saying to Robin, I don't know the balance between looking at the things that are happening and not feeding them, and staying within my truth and feeding the light, because that's what I'm drawn to do. That's what I feel my soul wants to do. But we can't ignore certain things that are happening at the same time. And that's where this conversation today is being born out of, just to put it in context for you guys. So, Robs, do you want to maybe speak a little bit about the video yesterday and how you came to create it? I love the affirmation that came out of it as well, by the way. It was beautiful. But just share with the audience a little bit about that.
Well, it's been a very interesting journey for me personally. I always find that whenever there's a major crisis going on in the world, whether it's terrorism or earthquakes or incidents like all the upheaval that's happening in the States, and even the COVID-19, people often go, what's Robin saying? What's Robin saying? And I always find that I need to take a few days just to find my center and find what my truth is and what do I feel about it. And likewise in this situation, when I first saw the video, it was of George Floyd, of him dying. I suppose. It really was hard for me to watch it. It was incredibly painful. And I almost switched it off. I was just like, I can't watch this. And I literally had to force myself to watch it because I was thinking to myself, Robin, this is real. This is actually what is going on right now. And it's truth, it's fact. And you cannot be Mr. Mind Power and live in the sky and not really deal with what people are facing in their daily lives. This is the truth. So I forced myself to watch it, and it was very emotional for me, and I felt very disturbed by it afterwards. And even watching the news, and I've consciously watched the news. I know that usually I say to people, just be very conscious of how much news you watch because it does impact your psyche, and the news does focus on what's wrong. I think of news as being negative energy with suffering. That's what they're focusing on. They're focusing on the negative energy. But at the same time, it's good to be informed and know what's going on. So I've been consciously tuning in and just seeing what is really going on. Be very careful that you're not being swayed, though, by the opinion of the particular news channel you're watching. And so I always watch it with that opinion, like, okay, what's truth and what is sensationalism? And sometimes there's a lot of sensationalism and a little bit of truth. And sometimes there's no truth and a lot of sensationalism. Yeah. But I think in this particular case, my experience is that people are hurting. People are in pain. There is a lot of pain on the planet, not just in the United States. From a much larger perspective, Susana, I think that we are going through a birthing pain of evolving to a higher state of consciousness on the planet. And forgive me, I've got some people supporting me and helping me. That's Reggie. Hey, Reggie. There's a lot going on the planet. So not just the George Floyd thing, the COVID-19 situation is intensifying. The world is going to, if I may say something that might sound controversial, I think we're going to go through a lot of intensity, and we need to be prepared for the intensity. And so for me, what I like to do is I want to go within and find out what's my truth. How do I heal the wounds? Because it's so easy to get into the reaction of like, this is wrong and this is right and this is what should be happening. And, and everyone comes in with their opinion, which is, valid. But for me, there's one of my favorite quotes is there's what is it? There's my side, there's your side, and there's always three sides. There's my side, there's your side, and then there's the truth. And how do I go beyond just what I think and what you think? And how do we find the truth? Another statement, which I think is similar to that, it goes as follows, which is beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And I love that. Beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And the challenging thing, I think, for each and every one of us, or certainly let me speak for myself, is how do I come from a place of truth? How do I come from a place of inner power, a place of inner strength, and not come from a place of reaction and opinion, and really come from a place of what is my truth? What do I believe? And so the affirmation you're referring to, Susana, is that one of my students on my Mind Power course created an affirmation, by the way, not related to what's going on. It was just her affirmation. I said, wow, what a beautiful affirmation. I'd like to use it. And I used it in yesterday's video. And she had written this affirmation, which is, I am patient, I am kind, I am the master of my mind. I am patient. I am kind. I am the master of my mind. And I really loved it. And I think because when I read it, I was feeling the pain that is on the planet at the moment, because we are all connected and we are tuned into what's going on. And I just thought that's actually a beautiful approach. How can I personally, and speaking about me, how can I be patient with myself? How can I be kind with others? And how can I be the master of my mind so that I don't come from a place of reaction, but really come from a place of deep contemplation of what is the higher vibration that I can choose? Where can I do the work in myself? And so in one way right now, it's so easy to look at the outer world and go into blame, what I call the victim mindset of accusation, blame, and criticism. And trust me, there's a place for that. I am not saying there isn't a place for that. The external change needs to happen. So please don't hear me. I feel very strongly that there is a massive shift that needs to happen. And so this is not disregarding that. And I really want to make that very, very clear. But from which place am I going to come from when I make that change? What is the highest vision that I have for the shift that I want to see happen? And actually where the work starts for me, Susana, is I think the work starts internally with me. The work starts with me doing my own work on myself. And it was interesting in my coaching session with my coach on Monday. I was really examining myself and seeing how certain behaviors that were okay for me 5 years ago are not okay for me anymore because I'm evolving and I'm growing. And so things that I could do 5 years ago and for the personality and for where I was at 5 years ago, that was cool. I was like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And today I look back at that and go, oh my gosh, geez, that guy was quite immature in some ways. And how do we continually make sure that we are evolving? So I feel like I'm getting, I'm not quite getting it. The point I'm really wanting to get across is how do I be the master of my mind? How do I come from a place of healing and love, but also at the same time, not disregard what is going on, not to belittle what is going on for people.
Yeah, I think that, there's a couple of things that come up for me while you speaking, and the one is, and my wise boyfriend said this to me this morning. He said, be careful because the news reports what the minority of the planet is doing. And we've got to put that into perspective. When somebody commits a murder, it's one person committing a murder. Yes, there's lots of murders going on, but there are billions of people on the earth. And that does feed an energy. And so just to be wary, and I think that's why both of us have always agreed, like, don't feed the media wolf that can really get everybody really hyped up. At the same time, we can't negate that certain things are happening and certain changes need to happen as well. And so we need an awareness around that in order for those changes to actually occur. And, one of the things that I was saying to Robin is that, there are certain statements that I feel create division, and as much as the statement was created, and I say that like this with a positive intention at hand, there are certain statements that I feel that still create division. And, some of my friends have been posting and they've said, I will never understand, but I stand with you, And the reality is that the majority of us, if not everyone, will never understand fully. In fact, nobody understands fully what it is like to live in somebody else's shoes. We can only get a glimpse of understanding of certain aspects of what that is. But it is I feel like it is part of our duty as human beings to try and understand and to find compassion and to do what we can in our own, like you're saying, Robin, look at myself. Like, what are my actions that contribute to the larger picture? What are my thought processes that contribute to the larger picture? That is the responsibility I take within myself. But where is that balance, Robs? Where is that balance between feeding the wolf you don't want to grow and still being aware and taking responsibility for the change that needs to happen? And is that our responsibility? These are all the questions. Sorry, I'm throwing like a whole bunch of things at you right now, but.
Well, look, I think it is a deep internal cathartic process. I think there's I'm finding myself questioning some of my beliefs. I'm finding myself questioning because my whole approach has been to focus on forgiveness, healing the wounds of the past, not living in resentment. And I 100% still stand by that. That for me is essential for your own well-being. And at the same time, it is important to make a stand about what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And so for me, the kneeling on a man's neck when he is struggling to breathe, that is unacceptable behavior. And that needs to be held to account under any circumstance. At the same time, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was saying in the same way, I feel that the looting is completely inappropriate. And people go, yeah, but you don't understand why they're looting. No, under no circumstances do I stand for anybody kneeling on somebody's neck and they're dying, or for looting stores and saying, well, because they're doing that, I'm going to go and do this over here. And that is why, for me, for each and every one of us, we need to find our own internal compass of what I stand for and what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And so for me, while in my Mind Power course, one of the things we speak about is you're the cause of everything that happens. We attract and create our circumstances. Having said that, if I ever saw a man sexually abusing a child, I probably would commit murder, because that for me is something I will not stand for. So it's an interesting balance, and I can even feel I'm feeling my own internal emotion around it, and I'm monitoring that. And I think that is what I'm getting at, is there's a lot of incredibly intense emotion on the planet. And there's something that needs to be heard that is not being heard. And I just feel that what do we stand for? And I was in watching the news, I was seeing the Pope condemning the behavior, and many world leaders condemning the behavior. And sorry, I'm not a fan, and I know most people know this, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump at all. And I feel he fuels the fire. And I'm just like, that's not leadership. Leadership comes from a place of compassion and understanding and healing the wounds. And yeah, it's not an easy situation, but I think we all need to be very clear about what is the world we're wanting to create? What does it look like? So for me, all I can do is paint the picture that I'd like to create. The world I'd like to create is one of loving, caring, non-judgment, full acceptance. Now, the only way I really heal those wounds, I believe, is look in me, Susana, and say, well, where in me am I still judgmental? Where in me am I still racist?
Yeah.
And each and every one of us needs to ask ourselves that question. Where in me do I carry judgment about other people based on my programming and my conditioning? Because that's where the healing happens. The healing happens internally in consciousness. Yes, there is work that needs to be done in the outer world, but what we teach in Mind Power, the outer world is just a reflection of the inner state of consciousness. So what's happening out there is really a symbol of what's happening in the mass psyche at the moment. And so this is actually an incredible opportunity for healing. But how do we do the healing? Not by pointing the finger, but by saying, okay, so Robin, we're me. And that's why I was saying to you earlier, when I look at the Robin from 5 years ago, and the stuff that was appropriate for him 5 years ago really was appropriate. It was okay for him to be doing what he was doing. I'll give you a silly example. This is so silly. It's crazy. I have to admit that I just can't drink coffee anymore. Like, what? I know. I can't drink coffee anymore. And I hate that I can't drink coffee anymore because I love the buzz it gives me. Like when I drink coffee, my mind goes ding and I feel sharper. I feel more focused. I don't feel fuzzy. And I just am on such a high. But how amazing is this? The more I've been doing my work, the more I've been changing my own internal vibration and shifting my vibrational state. I drink a cup of coffee now and I pay for 3 days. I pay with heavy energy. My muscles go tight. And I keep thinking, it's not the coffee. It's not the coffee. It's something else. It's something else. And then I'm like, and then I'll feel better after a few days of not having coffee. And then what I'll do is I'll have a few cups of coffee. And I'm like, frickin' hell, same thing. And so it's a silly example, but trust me, it is so pertinent because what I think is happening for me, and this is, my belief system, I really resonate with it. My vibration is changing. I am changing my vibrational frequency, and the planet's vibrational frequency, literally the planet vibrates at a particular frequency. We vibrate at a particular frequency, and the energy with which you vibrate determines what you attract into your life. So when I'm vibrating at a higher frequency, things that were appropriate 5 years ago when I can drink 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, now I can't drink a cup of coffee a week without paying the price. In the same way, what is the old outdated beliefs that I might have about Black people, about white people, about colored people, about Indian people, about Jewish people, about Muslim people, about Christian people, about atheists, about lesbians, about, like, what is it going to take for me to heal the wound of going, oh my gosh, I was conditioned to see these people, whoever they may be, in a certain way. Is that really who they are, or is that the perception that's been created in my mind?
And not only is it the perception that's been created in your mind, but where did that perception come from? So one of the great films that I've watched is one of my favorite films. It's called Crash. I don't know if you watched it, Banks, but it's really a fantastic film.
Brilliant.
Because for me, the discussion that needs to happen is such a difficult one. It's such a difficult discussion to happen, because the reality, and that film just did it so well, because there are all these preconceived ideas that we have on a subconscious level that have been programmed into us from when we are born. And we live our lives with these, and they create these blanket statements that kind of frame our reality. And what was so brilliant that I loved about that film, and this is the hard conversation, is that it literally said the reason why she has this belief is because it's a stereotype, and there's a truth within that stereotype. And then it's a stereotype, and it's completely a blanket racist statement to have, divisional statement to have. And that's where the difficulty comes out. What is the society that we've created as human beings? What are the stereotypes that society has created? What is our reptilian brain saying to us? Oh, careful of that, because it could be dangerous because of the stereotype that exists within the society that we've created. But what is it stopping us from embracing because of that, in all the untruths, in all the places that it is not true? And that is something, just like you're saying, that I'm battling with. I'm like, where am I racist? You know, like I have to look at myself in that, because I grew up very privileged. I went to a Waldorf school, which the Waldorf school in the apartheid era was one of the only schools that all colors, all religions were welcome at our school. And for me, that was the greatest privilege that I could have been afforded as a young person growing up, because I got to grow up understanding that there are different cultures and that there are different people that believe different things, different views, different ways of seeing the world, and that we have all these beautiful different skin colors. You know, I mean, my boyfriend is Indian, and I love the color of his skin. And sometimes you get nervous about saying these things because it can be perceived in a certain way in the framing of society today. But for me, I see that as beautiful. That is a privilege that I grew up with. It's an absolute privilege that I grew up with. But where am I racist? Where are those gaps in me that have been informed by a society that I've been raised in, that inform my subconscious choices in my daily life? And how can I re-inform myself and change that? And that's hard, Robs. It's such a hard thing to do, to identify in yourself. And it's a hard conversation to have, because we want everybody to feel heard. Everybody needs and deserves to feel heard. Everybody has pains. You know, somebody was saying that, well, so many people have said, I will never understand, but I stand with you. It's not true. Like, we do understand. We maybe don't understand fully, but even as a woman, I understand. I understand the frustration it feels like to be treated differently because of my sex. of being treated inappropriately simply because I've been born a woman. So I do understand being treated inappropriately, inaccurately. I understand that. I maybe don't understand it to the full extent of somebody else and their reality, but we do have insight into it. And so if we can tap into that and go, where have I been treated in my life without justice or unfairly, or where I've felt it's out of an alignment, then we can gain compassion and understanding for others. And where have I done it to others?
And I think for me, that is where the healing starts, because when you take the self-righteous approach about why I'm right and you're wrong, nothing heals. And so for me, and I hear why people feel like that's a very unjust thing to say. And I still feel that the polarized view separates. And that's either way the polarized view separates. How do I find the harmonious view? And so for me, again, it comes back to looking at oneself. I mean, I had to be honest about something the other day, which was painful for me to own. It was painful for me, and I'll share it with you. And I feel embarrassed to say this, but I share it with you guys, not from a standpoint of wanting to embarrass myself, obviously, but that, by the way, that is one of the biggest things on the planet, is looking good. We always want to look good and look like we've got it all together. And we all have our work to do. Anyhow, somebody came to give me a quote for something on the property, that I had some work I needed done. And from the moment the guy walked onto the property, I thought, this guy is not the right guy. And my partner, Nadia, said, why not? So I said, he doesn't know what he's... She says, but you made that judgment of him the moment you saw him because of the way he was dressing and the car he was driving.
Yeah. Thanks. I've done it. I've done it. We've all done it.
So she said, that's racist. I said, actually, to be honest with you, I don't think it was racist, but I think you are right. It was classist. I felt like this guy, will he be able to do it? You know, he doesn't put across the right image of someone who's going to be able to be successful in fulfilling so while I feel very I'm very clear I wasn't being racist, but I do think when she challenged me on it, I thought, shit, I'm being classist. I'm being complete. I judged him from the moment I saw him pull up, and I saw his old battered up car, and he was making such a great effort. I mean, he was dressing as smartly as he could, and I could see that this guy didn't have the image or the branding that I needed to be associated with to make sure that I feel confident that he's going to do a great job. Now, is there some truth for that for me? Maybe there is, but how about giving him a chance before I judge him? How about letting him complete his process? Because to be honest with you, I wrote him off before he even started speaking. And why I share that with you guys is that I think this is the pain that people are referring to right now on the planet, is that, are we giving people their fair chance? Or is it only those who have the education that I will support, or those who have the right background, or those who have the right image, or the right bloodline, or the right color, or the right religion, or the right... And I just think it's such a good question for us to ask ourselves. Look not for the perpetrator out there, but look for the perpetrator in here and say, well, actually, shit, in that moment, that's not the highest standard that I want to live up to. That's not the man I choose to be. And while I certainly would not describe myself as a racist by any means, are there potentially racist tendencies in me? Well, you cannot tell me that growing up in a country where it was so encouraged, that it's not in there somewhere. And each of us needs to own that even though I too, like you, Susana, went to a mixed school, and I got to go to school, which was unusual in the 80s, with people from all different backgrounds and religions and races, and it did help me a lot in healing the wounds. I still didn't go to school in Soweto, and I don't know their pain. I don't know because I don't know. So because I haven't had the experience. So I just think what is called for right now is I'm patient and I'm kind. I'm the master of my mind. And the focus for me is, how do I be kind and find the healing in my heart to hear people's pain across the spectrum. Having said that, there is a specific focus on the planet right now around a specific issue. And I think we would be remiss not to do our absolute best to find the ways of questioning, how do we heal these wounds? How do we make sure? And, in a funny way, maybe, and by the way, please know that as I'm speaking, I do not have the answers. And I really want this to be a conversation, because I do not. Come to Mind Power, I have the answers. I can teach you certain things. But this is an area for me where I too am questioning, and I too am wondering, and I too am pondering, how do we create a different world? And the only answer that keeps coming up for me is do the work on yourself, Robin. Be conscious of how I treat other people. Question, where in me is there the part of me that is the perpetrator? Where in me is there the part that's the victim? Where in me do I play the victim? Where in me do I play and how do I, so it's just, it's an interesting one. And I think that, as you can hear, this is not a clear, clean package, like nicely presented. Okay, good, we've done it. Here's the research, boom. I think it's a process. It's a journey rather than a destination.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why I said to you, it's quite funny, your example of somebody coming to work. I met somebody socially, and I don't want to point out who it was, but they were dating somebody that was very dear to me. And from the moment she walked in, I did exactly what you did. And it wasn't a color thing at all. She was a white woman. And I immediately retracted, and I was like, and because of the way in which she presented herself, and I made a judgment. Terrible. I know. I did it. But can anybody that is watching this say that you have not done the same at some point? I caught myself, thank goodness, not immediately, like within a few minutes, I caught myself and I was like, Susana, you're totally judging this person and you haven't even had a conversation with this person yet. How can you be judging them? And so I did kind of hold it. And then she ended up being the most beautiful person, like just a kind, beautiful person. Just the way in which she presented herself and the way in which her life choices were just completely opposite to mine. But how judgmental of me to kind of go, oh, this isn't the right person because she must be like this. But we all have judgments. We all do. And that's why I'm sharing that with you, Robs, because you're not alone in that. And it doesn't have to be a race thing. And that's something that is also, I think, important, is that any division, whether it's because of color, whether it's because of socioeconomic standing, whether it's because of religion, whether it's because of political belief, whatever it is, any division, any judgment that we have is something that we need to look at. And so that is my invitation to you, like I was saying to Robin earlier on, is like, I'm just really stopping myself and looking at every time I react, every time I respond to a situation, and really looking at where that comes from. And I agree with you, Robs, that is one of the ways that I can take control of what's happening and do something proactive, because I'm not sure what else to do. I can tell my friends I stand with them, but I don't know what else to do. And so I open this conversation to you guys if you have any suggestions, if you have any positive. So that's another thing, is like, I get that people are angry. I really, really do. It's justified that people are angry. But let's think about solutions. Let's think about a positive movement. Like, how are we going to move through this to find a better way of being?
And guys, listen, I mean, like, for me, I actually stand for the demonstrations. I stand for the protesting. I don't stand for the violence and the looting. But I'm very clear, and as I said to you earlier, I'm very happy to be clear on the stand I make, that, when people say, well, protests never change anything. Really?
Yeah, no, they absolutely do.
They create an awareness, and there's not only a place for them, I think they're essential, because otherwise behavior would just be continually accepted. If it wasn't for protests, I don't think South Africa would be a free nation today. If it wasn't for protests, I don't think the States would be. So there's definitely a place for the protests. And so there is a physical stand. And what's been beautiful to watch is been watching some of the news clips where they actually show police walking arm in arm with the protesters. and hugging protesters, and which I don't think is a good idea in COVID-19. But anyway, I've seen them. I'm like, oh shit, what are you doing, dude? You're in the States. It's like you guys have got the highest level in the country. Like, I'd be like, I'm with you. I'm really with you. High five, virtual. But but what has been beautiful has been to see, and that creates healing for me. And so for me, what I did is I showed Nadia, my lady, that, because we have had a lot of conversation. I said, you need to watch this. And she's like, why? So I said, you need to watch this because this is showing the healing that is taking place. Mm-hmm. And there are those of us who, and I do include myself and you in that, who are interested in creating a different world, who are spearheading a different way of being, and there is action that needs to be taken. I'm not quite sure what the action is. Having said that, if I was in the States, I probably would be protesting because I do think it stands for something. And I did want to make a video yesterday because I did want to add my voice to the conversation in a constructive way. And so I do think there are things that need to be done in order to hold people to account. So, while on the one hand, we can speak about forgiveness, and one of the things I always speak about in my mind power is the person you're actually doing the forgiveness for is for you. And while there might be forgiveness for the policemen who were responsible, they need to be held accountable. Yeah. They need to face imprisonment. Forgiveness does not mean that people can get away with behavior. Like if you rape someone, it's like, yeah, I would say to the person who's been raped, listen, you need to find forgiveness in your heart. And I'm saying that to you, for you, and you can forgive the person, but that person still needs to be held accountable. They still need to take responsibility for their actions. Because if you don't take responsibility, if we're not held accountable for our actions, well, then everything goes. And, we need to find a way of creating a world where there are certain standards. And unfortunately, Susana, this is the painful part. The standards that have been acceptable, and this is where I do feel strong, the standards that have been acceptable has not been balanced. And it needs to be balanced. We need to find a standard that is acceptable and for all, so there is action that needs to be taken. And so for me, by having this conversation, I am not at all discouraging action. I think that's what's going to change the world. But let's really think on it. Let's come from a place of clarity in consciousness. And that is why for me, I always go within whenever. You even said to me in the first week of Rob, where are you? I just don't feel you at the moment.
Yeah.
And I disappeared and I went inward because I was dealing with my own internal catharsis, because I don't think you can truly offer much value to other people if there's not clarity internally, if you're not, and not that it's ever going to be perfectly clear. I'm not saying it needs to be perfectly clear, but at least have some connection with your own soul in order to serve the whole. Ooh, I like
Absolutely. That. And I love that connection to the soul in order to serve the whole. Let's remember that, Rob. It's a good one. But I just want to say that to everyone that's listening, that I agree, that I do think protesting helps, that I do think that protests are necessary. And even when fees must fall, when that whole thing was happening, I was very in support of that movement. What always saddens me and where I will retract and move away from is when it turns violent or when it turns to anything that is damaging or in any way, deconstructive in any way. Because the point is that we need to be heard. People need to be heard and change needs to be made. But don't damage somebody in the process. If you can, please. That I think that's one of my things. I really worry about that. But I am with you. We are so out of time. We've gone 15 minutes over our slot. We've gotten a lot of comments coming through. This seems like an opportunity for us to acknowledge that we're all in bias in some way and to work on that. Yes, I agree with that absolutely. Great comments on protests, Robin. Protests are essential. There's another one here. I believe that good and bad need to coexist for order, for one's personal growth, because else we to measure ourselves against. So the good and bad, something I really have been talking a lot on, guys, is the fourth dimension is very dualistic. And the fifth dimension kind of collapses that. And so we will always have the good and the bad, but nothing is good and bad, because it's all part of the evolution of things. And so just to keep that in mind, you know,
who knows?
Good, bad, who knows? Exactly. We're going through a growth and evolution and expansion. And I agree with you, Robin. I think that it will be quite a tumultuous time for a while, because there is healing at an accelerated rate that is currently taking place on the planet. And so it is about being patient. I love that affirmation, being patient and compassionate, not only with the world around you, but with yourself, and always doing that dance of looking at yourself with kindness, patience, and compassion, and looking at the world with kindness, patience, and compassion. And then absolutely take action where you know to take action, and where you know that it feels right for you and that it will yield something that is a positive change. Sorry, Robs, do you want to add one more thing?
Well, actually, it might open up a whole nother conversation, but maybe it's a conversation for another time. Interesting that our conversation was supposed to be on beliefs today, and we chose to have this conversation, but it actually does all stem back to beliefs, but that's another conversation. What I really was going to touch on is the whole good, bad, who knows. I really do think that is a very important aspect for us to really look at. Is the judgment of what is good and what is bad is actually often the thing that causes a lot of pain and distress in the world. And it's a very tricky thing, but here's my invitation. In closure, what I really want to say from my side to people is I really want to just reiterate that affirmation from Juanita Skuman, that's her name, Juanita, young girl. I am patient, I am kind, I am the master of my mind. And I really want us to take that on. I take it on. It's not my affirmation. It's Juanita's, and I love it. In fact, I've been adding to it. I was saying it to myself last night. I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep because I was just thoughts in my head. And I actually changed it a bit. And I was saying to myself, I am loving, patient, and kind. I am the master of my mind. I am loving, patient, and kind. I am the master of my mind. And I just found that there was something quite soothing about saying that to myself over and over again. Probably said it for about 3-4 minutes in the middle of the night. I am loving, patient, and kind. I am the master of my mind. And I think if each and every one of us, in closure, really what I want to say, guys, is there's a lot of change happening in the world. I really, for those of you who are online, I encourage you to be aware that potentially things are going to intensify. We are going through a massive shift, and I think that there's a period of time where we are going to be experiencing a lot of intensity. And somebody told me that there are 7 planets in retrograde at the moment. I'm like, oh, fascinating. And initially when people used to say things like Mercury's in retrograde, I'm like, what the hell? That's such a load of crap. How can Mercury affect things? Well, if everything's energy and vibration, and the planets are in retrograde, it does have an impact. So there is an intensity on the planet at the moment, more than likely. I mean, with not just because of COVID-19, now with this situation. And I really want to encourage you guys, not from a standpoint of being Mr. Doom and Gloom, but from a standpoint of prepare yourself. That we are going through a major birthing on this planet. We are going through a major shift on this planet. And I think the best way we're going to serve the world is by getting to touch, by being in touch with our own true selves, by doing the work inside. And so really what I want to encourage you is to become the master of your mind. Really become the master of what's happening in your own inner world. Be patient, be loving, be kind to yourself. Be patient, be loving, be kind to others, because the world is going through a lot of change. I had an experience, Susana, I'm not sure I told you this, just when COVID was becoming major in South Africa and we were about to go into lockdown, and there was a very heavy energy, and it was tangible. I woke up in the middle of the night. And it wasn't a thought that I didn't think the thought. The thought was just there. I haven't shared this publicly. I've shared it with other people before.
You shared it with me. But
I woke up with this thought that the world really needs you right now, and you're ready. And I remember going, what? What was that? The world really needs you right now, and you're ready. And I remember thinking to myself as I went to the loo, thinking, but I don't feel ready. I'm feeling anxious about where the world is at. I'm feeling concerned because I was in that phase of finding my own truth. And here this voice speaks to me and tells me the world really needs me right now and I'm ready. And it's amazing if I tell you how much has shifted in terms of my global presence, the impact I'm making, my numbers have grown. And I do feel like I've got something to offer that'll help the world. And here's what I want to say to every single one of you on this call right now. There are no mistakes. There are no coincidences. You have got something to offer during this time. What is it that you've got to offer that's going to help the healing of the planet? And even if you're not sure what it is, ponder on that. And I'm going to say something to you. The world needs conscious, awakened leaders right now, and you are ready because you need to be ready, and we need you to be ready. So one of the best ways to do the work is to focus on what you have to give and focus on rather than on what you're not getting. So I don't know why I felt like sharing that with you. The world needs you. The world really needs you right now. More than ever before, the world needs leadership. And if not you, then who? If you don't play your part, nobody plays it. You've got something very specific to bring to this party. And if you don't bring it, it doesn't get brung. So the world needs you right now. And you are ready. Trust that. Know that. It doesn't have to be beautiful and clean and presented in a nice bow. This has been one of the most challenging conversations I've had because I'm still working through it myself. And so know that even as you are processing your own goals, your own shifts, your own internal things, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do need to show up. You do need to be present. You do need to bring yourself fully to the party because that's how we're going to make the difference. So anyhow, I don't know why I just felt like sharing that with you guys in closure.
No, it's great. It's amazing because I had a similar experience. And I didn't feel ready at all. And then I launched Thrive on that download of information that happened. And so I remember you telling me that story because we didn't get to really talk around that time. You were going through your processing and I kind of left you to go through yours and I was going through mine. But I believe that it is a calling to all of us on this planet. It's not just you, Robs, or me. It's like you say, it's everybody on this planet. And I absolutely loved the affirmation that you said without even, it just went connected to my soul. I serve the whole. I love it. I've written it down. I will write it in the comments for everybody because I think all of us, Robin and my spiritual coach, Leisha Jarrett, was with me this morning. And we were speaking about manifesting in the fifth dimension. How do we attract to us in the fifth dimension? And there again, it was very much affirmed, we need to be connected to our truth, to what we really are, our soul, our deepest self, our highest self. And from that, everything will come. I've got a lovely new astrologer who is going to be giving us astrology updates on Thrive. And I will be posting it this afternoon. Her name is Anya. And so she's giving us readings for the days, which will give you a little bit of insight. Robin was speaking about Mercury retrograde. So look out for that, guys. I thank everybody for tuning in today. Thank you for tuning in. For everybody who's listened to this either live or recorded, I honor you for taking the time to be a part of this type of conversation. If you feel that it served you or will serve somebody else, please do share it or tag your friends. We want to grow the Thrive community as much as possible because it is about sharing light, bringing light and growth and expansion to this world. So please do share. And Robin, thank you so much for being with us today. It's always such a pleasure. You're one of my favorite human beings on this planet.
Likewise, Savannah.
And I will chat to you soon.